Hello everyone, Nikhil this side. So in this video, we will build a basic React Redux application and you will learn about the fundamentals of the Redux and most important that how the Redux works in the action. So let's start and please subscribe to the channel, and if you are here for the first time, and please like the video so that more people can see this video. So right now about the Redux. So there are some basic requirements for the React Redux application. So you should have the basic knowledge of how the React works, and now we will see about some terminologies in the Redux. So first, Redux. So Redux is a state management tool which helps us to manage the complex states, and with the help of Redux we can create a CDS, which is exactly the central data store, which help us to manage the whole data store in just one store. So the whole state can be managed in just one data store. So about the reducers, so about the reducer functions, they manages the state and returns the newly updated state. So they are actually the functions which manages the states in the Redux, and there are some actions which is a part of the reducer function, which is actually the parameter in the reducer function. So they have the two properties of type, and then it is a payload property. So the type property has a unique identifier in it, and the payload property has the data in it. And about the dispatch, so the dispatch is created whenever we want to send an event data. So whenever an event occurs, whenever we want to send the data to the Redux, so we have to use the dispatch function to send the actions to update the data. So these are about the basic terminologies in the Redux. So now we will create the React Redux application to build the counter application in the project. So I have created a basic React application here, and you should also create it from the command npx create -react -app, and then the app name. I have given the app name as the React Redux, so you can also give any name to this. And then we need to go inside the directory, and then we need to install two libraries of the Redux, which is the npm install, and the first library is the Redux itself, and then there is also a library with the React, it will the React-Redux. So we have to install these two also. So we have to wait till it completes the installation in that. And now the packages are now installed. So now we have to go to inside the React Redux application from here also. And now we need to create here the store inside the source folder. So the store will contain all the state management tools. So we have to create a new folder. It will be the store, and then we have to create an index.js file in the store, index.js. And now we have to handle all of the React states in just single index.js file. So now first we have to import the Redux, so it will be the import, and then the function will be the create store from the Redux, and then we need to create here the store. So the cons store will be equals to the create store, but now the create store needs a reducer, so we have to create a reducer function also, as we have talked in the PPT. So it will be the const reducer function will be equals to an arrow function, and this will contain a state and action as the parameters. So the state is a state which we will provide, and the action will be the action will have two payloads in that, two properties in that. The first is the type and the payload, which we have discussed in the PPT. So now in the reducer function, if I will not define nothing here, and then if I will not define the create store as the reducer function in that, so now the store is now created, and then we can use the store. So now for the state, now if I will not give an initial value to the state as an object, so it will contain a counter and the value will be the 0. So now the state has a counter property with the 0 value inside that. So now we have to handle the state here. So now if I will now create a counter in the app.js file, and for using the store, we need to go to the index.js, which is the root file, and then we need to provide here the store. So for providing the store, we have a function in the React Redux application, React Redux package, which is a store provider. So we have to provide the store to the whole application which contains in the application. So the app component will be the main application component, and it will contain the store. So all of the components will have access to the React store, which is this index.js file. So we have to provide that now in the index.js. So we need to import here the import. It will be the provider from the React Redux. So the provider will provide a store, and then we can wrap a whole app component of the React with the provider. So the provider will be now from the React until the strict mode ends. So they will be the provider, and now the provider will contain a prop which is the store, and then the store we need to provide the store which is in the which we have to export the store. So then we have to export here the store also as the export default const store, and it will be equals to the store. So because the export default will not be here, so export default store from here. And now we need to import the store in the index.js. So it will be the store, so it will be imported from the store application from this index.js, and now we have given the store. So now the app component have access to the store, and now we need to handle the state, and then we need to show the state. So in the app.js, if I will now go here, if I have to remove from the header till the header, and then I will remove the class name app also from here, and now we have to add here the h1 tag which is a counter app, and then we can now provide here the counter inside this. And then to get the counter here from the index.js store, now we need to get here in the app.js with the useSelector hook, and the useSelector hook is available in the React Redux. So we need to import the useSelector if I have to remove the logo and the app.css also. So import the useSelector from the React and the Redux, and then the useSelector will give us an help which we can extract the counter from this index.js store. So it will be useSelector from to the const selector, or like the counter will be equals to the useSelector, and then the useSelector will be the key to get the counter. And now the counter will be done from the useSelector, and then we need to pass here. So we need to provide here a callback function, and the callback function will have the state inside it, and then we have the counter property in the state. So we have to access the state dot counter. So it will be the counter now. So the counter is now actually the counter. So if I will provide another like h2, and inside that if I will provide a counter here, so it will be the counter. So now if I will now save, and if I will now just start the application now, npm start, so now we will see the counter on the screen. So we have to wait till it compiles and it loads to the browser. So now in the browser now, so we have the blank application. So if I will now check the error in the console, that what exactly is the error. So the error is because cannot reach property of the undefined reading counter. So now this error is coming because now in the index.js now we have a store, and in the app.js we are now accessing the counter, but in the reducer function we haven't dispatched anything, and we haven't written anything from the reducer function. So if I will now just return here the counter, or like return here the main state which we have the state inside that. So if I will now save, and if I will now go again, so now you will see the counter app is now and now there are no many errors now, and the counter is now showing on the screen. So now if I will now give a value of the 10 to the counter, so the 10 will be here. So then you will see we have the state of the 10 here, and now this is the simple React application. And now we will create here some reducer functions inside that. So now I will move on to the app.js, and inside the counter I will create two buttons. Button, the on click will be equals to the like increment, and then the button will be the increment same, and then there will be another, so it will be having the on click, it will be the decrement. So now this will have the text of the decrement, and then we need to create the functions also with the const increment will be equals to a function, and same the const decrement will be equals to another function inside that. So now we need to create some buttons here, and now we have now the increment and the decrements here. So if I will now save, so now you will see two buttons will be here of the increment and the decrement. So now I want this application to be, when I will click the increment, so the counter will increase, and when I will click the decrement, the counter should decrease. So for this help, now we need to dispatch an action, And now we have seen in the PPT that what exactly is the dispatch. So dispatch is used whenever we want to send the data to the Redux store. So for the dispatch, we need to import something from the React Redux. It will use dispatch. So the use dispatch function will help us to dispatch an action, and then we have to provide a unique action, and then the Redux store will fetch the action, and then it will update the store. So for that, in the app.js, for the increment, now if I will now use here the dispatch, and for using the dispatch, first we have to give a variable as the const dispatch will be equals to the use dispatch hook, which we are now importing. So it will the use dispatch. So now we are now giving the reference of the use dispatch to the dispatch. So it will be here. So it will be down dispatch, and then in the dispatch we have to provide an action. So for the action, if I will now provide an object for the action, so first it will contain a type property. So the type, if I will provide as the inc increment, and then if I will now save, and then we need to go to the index.js store, and now we have to check if we have the action of the type with the inc. So we have to increment the counter. So now there are some limitations for the React reducer functions. So first, they should be the synchronous function, and the second limitation is that we should not mutate the original state. So here we have two limitations. That first, it should always be a synchronous function, and it should not contain an async code inside that, and we should not mutate this original state, and we are not allowed to do that in the Redux store, because it will crash the application. So it should always be a copy of the original state, and the main state should not be updated. So for that, I have to create here so if I will now use here the if condition, so the if the type equals to the if the action dot type property, which we are now sending then, if the action dot type will be equals to the increment inc, so then we need to create here the new state, and then we need to return the state. Will be the return. It will be like an object with the state property, and the state will equals to the counter. State will be equals to the state dot counter, which we have here, and it will be plus plus. So then we need to return here the state object, which will be equals to the state dot counter plus plus. So now if I will use the counter as the 0, start from the 0, and then if I will now save, so then you will see, if I will now click on the increment, so actually there is an error, I think, so we have to fix that. So the error is coming because we are now sending the state, and now we are now using here the counter property. So we have to send here the counter. So instead of the state, we need to send here the counter. So if I will now save again, and if I will now click on the increment, so now I think the counter plus plus is not here. So if I will now add here this as the counter plus 1, and then you will see it will increment the state. So then you will see the counter will increment now the state. So these are about handling the state in that. So here we are now sending a dispatch action, and action is the inc, and here we are fetching the same action here inc if the action dot type equals to the inc. So we have to return the counter state, and the counter state will be the state dot counter plus 1. So these are handling the states in the Redux. And now if I will now use here the decrement state, and for the decrement we need to send here another dispatch. So it will the dispatch, and then the action type will be equals to now the decrement, so it will be dec. So then we need to handle the dec in that. So we have to create one more if statement. If action dot type property will be equals to the decrement, so then we have to return the copied state counter will be equals to the state dot counter minus 1. So if I will now save again, so then you will see so it will be incremented, and once I will create decrement, so it will be decremented the original state. So these are about handling the counter app in the React and the Redux. And now if we have to send there some data to that, if I will now add here one more thing, like in the app.js, if I will now add here another button inside that button, and the button will be the add, and it will be the value, and the add value, if it will be the 10, like it will be the on click, like it will be the add by. So we have to create another function as the add by, const add by, equals to the another function, and this will contain a dispatch action, and the dispatch action will be equals to the type property, and the type property will be equals to the the add. And then if I will now provide here the payload also, so the action is an object with the type and the payload property. So if I would provide here the payload, so it will be like the 10, and then you will see, so it will be the add by 10. So if I will now save, and if I will now move on to the, so it will be in the payload will be equals to the 10. So now we need to go to the index.js store. So it will be the if now the action dot type will be equals to the add. So then we need to return here the copied state again. So it will be equals to the counter will be equals to the state dot counter. It will be plus, and now we have the action property in the, and now we have the payload property also in the action. So it will be the action dot payload. So if I will now save this action dot payload, so if I will now save this, and if I will now move on to the application now, so once if I will now click at the increment, so increment is working, decrement is working. So if I will click add by 10, so then you will see add by 10 is also working. So now we are sending the data from the main app.js to the Redux store. So this is about the basic application with the React and the Redux. So now we have created the application, and now there is one more way to do the Redux part, and which is the Redux Toolkit. So if I will now move on to the Google Chrome, now if I will now search for the Redux Toolkit, do the Redux Toolkit, so then you will see there is a toolkit which will help us to manage the complex state, and with the batteries included, like it will have the functions in that which will help to mutate the state, and then which will help us to manage the automatically created the actions identifier. So we don't need to send the actions like the hard-coded actions. We are now providing from the the decrement, the add, the increment, and then the Redux toolkit handle all the reducer functions inside that, and we can create the reducer functions here, and then we can directly call the reducer functions from the main applications, which is now this application like the React application. And now if we have to use the Redux toolkit, then we need to click on the get started here, and then if you will click on the documentation, so then you will see first it will be the npx create react app. So it will directly install the Redux toolkit in that, and if we are using an existing app, then we can use the npm install redux.js toolkit. And then what is included here, so first it will be the configure store, which will wrap the create store to provide the simplified configuration options, and the create reducers, actions, slices. And about the slices, it accepts an object of the reducer functions, and then we can call directly these objects from the main applications, like from the app.js or anything. So it contains a slice name and an initial state value, and it automatically generates a slice reducer which corresponding action creators. So these are known as the action creators. So they automatically create an action identifiers and then pass to the reducer functions. So this will help us to do the all of the things very easily. And then it has a big advantage that here we can mutate the state. So we should not mutate the state anyways, but it will help us because the Redux toolkit uses a new package which is like the immer, which will help us to mutate the state, and then it automatically identifies that which state has been changed, and then it will send an automatically created copy of the state to the main applications. So it will help us to mutate this. So now we need to use this application with that. So first, if I will now move on to the main application here, if I will now close the server, and then we need to install this Redux toolkit. So it will be the npm install Redux toolkit. So we have to click this, and then we have to paste this here. So now you will see it will be installed in a moment. And now the Redux toolkit is now installed, and now we can just remove all of the things from the index.js now from this. And now we have to build from the scratch. So it will be the first, the import. We have to import the configure store, GURE store. From it will be from the Redux toolkit. So at the Redux toolkit, Redux.js toolkit, and then we need to now configure the store, and then we have to import a create slice from there, as we have learned about the create slice. And this will be the slice, so it will be imported. And now we have to create a slice. So first it will be the const counter slice, which will be equals to the create slice function, and then it will contain an options with that. So first it will contain the name of the slice, so the name of the slice here will be the counter, and then it will contain the initial state, and initial state will be equals to like the counter will be equals to like 0, and then it will contain the reducers, and the reducers will be an object which will contain the functions. So first function which we have is the increment, so it will be the function there, and then it will be the decrement, so it will also be the function, and then there will be the add by, so it will also be the function, and they are exactly the reducer functions. So they will contain the state and the actions inside that, state and the action. Here also state and the action, and here also the state and action. So first it will be in the increment, so then we can return here this like, or we can directly return here the mutated state. So we can directly mutate the state here. It will be the state dot counter, it will be the +1. So we have to do this, and now same for the decrement, state dot counter will be equals to the -1, or like directly doing this, and then we can create here the add by, so it will be the state dot counter will be +10, so it will be equals to the +10. So if I will now save, and then we need to create a configure store with that, so it will be the const store will be equals to the configure store, which we will do this, and then it will contain first it will contain a reducers here. So first we have to provide here an object, and it will contain a property of the reducer, and then we can provide here directly the counter reducer, like it will be the counter slice dot reducer. So if I will now save, and then we have to just here export the counter slice actions, so it will be the export, it will be the const actions will be equals to the counter slice dot actions. So now the actions which we are writing here will be now exported, and then it will be imported in the main app.js file. So if I will now save, and if I will now move on to the index.js, the main app.js, sorry, so it will be the like import. First we need to import here the actions, so it will be the actions from the store, from it will be like the from the store, and the actions index. So now the actions will be now imported, and now we have to just accept the, instead of this decrement, the type. So now the hard-coded values will not be here, so we can now just directly call the actions dot increment. So the increment will be called whenever we click on the increment, and same for the decrement. So here it will be the actions dot decrement. So here the decrement will be called, and here the same thing which will provide, we can call here the add by, actions dot add by, and then we can provide here any value, as we can provide here the payload to this property, and the action will automatically be created from that. So it will be the 10, and then if I will now save, and if I will now just restart the application, npm start, so the application will be now started. So now there is one error, that module build failed because we are now providing an equals to sign. So the object we have to give here the colon, so it will be an initial state, and the counter will be equals to 0. So if I will now save, and I should see if there are more errors. So there are more errors, as the export default imported as store was not found in that. So first we need to get here like the actions will be there, and the store. So we have now to export the default store also, export default and will the store. So if I will now save again, so I should see it should be the compiled. So there is another error, so we have to get this like expected an assignment call of the function, so an expression index.js store. So actually there is something like first there can be anything wrong here, so we have to see that. So first at the line 11, so line 11 is thing here, I think here we don't have to just give a hard-coded value. So if I will provide the plus plus, and here also plus plus, and here, so here it will be the minus minus, and here if I will now provide the state dot counter plus equals to, it will be the plus action which we are getting, so it will be the payload. So if I will now save with that, so then I think there is a one more error, expected assignment inserts our expression. So there should also be anything like that, plus equals to will be that, So if I will now save again, so now you will see it is now compiled because it doesn't need any hard-coded value. So if I will now save and if I will now go to that, so now you will see it will contain the same application which we have built with the React Redux also and with the toolkit also. So if I will now click on the increment, so then you will see increment is done, decrement is creating. So if I will now click on the add by 10, so then you will see the add by 10 is also working. And if I will now provide here the dynamic value of the app like the 20, so then you will see it will be increased by the 20. So if I will refresh, add by 10, so it will be increases by the 20. So this is the basic React application with the Redux functionalities, and it contains all the functionalities of the Redux and all the fundamental concepts of the Redux which are most important if you are building a real world application. So thank you guys for watching the video, and I hope you will like the video. And guys, please subscribe to my channel if you are new, and please see our more playlists like on the Material UI, React concepts, and more like the Monstack applications, and there are some more videos in that. So thank you guys.